Well, for more on this story, I'm joined now by political analyst Dalia Schindlin. She's a fellow at the Century Foundation and joins us from Tel Aviv. Welcome. Naftali Bennett has been described as an ultra-nationalist. If he governs true to those values, what would that mean to hopes of resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, it would maybe help resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the eyes of Israeli right-wing nationalists. I just want to point out that Naftali Bennett was among the first Israeli politicians in modern times to actually actively campaign on annexing large portions of the West Bank as far back as late 2012, long before Mr. Netanyahu was actively advancing an annexation plan from April 2019. So Bennett would be happy to resolve the conflict based on annexation, but that isn't going to happen anytime soon. And I think when you asked about resolution, you were primarily talking about a negotiated agreement with the Palestinians, probably based on the two-state solution or something like it. It doesn't look very auspicious for the prospects of that kind of solution because Naftali Bennett and his party is basically dead set against the two-state solution, and he's not the only one in the coalition. Gideon Saar's party, called New Hope, is a breakaway from the Likud. He's been a little bit less clear on exactly what he wants, but it seems that he is not exactly a supporter of a Palestinian state next to Israel. And so they would be the more hardline aspects of the coalition. We should, however, remember that Naftali Bennett, as you pointed out, he will be first in a rotation for prime minister, but with 6 seats in the coalition. He doesn't have 7 seats because one of his people on his list defected from this bloc. And, the coalition is made up of 61 members. He is still a minority, and he'll have to contend with competing views of a number of other parties who may have somewhat different views, but I don't see any big breakthroughs coming through for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Fair to say the path forward is complex on that front. There are already, as we saw at the top of our bulletin, people celebrating in the streets the end of Netanyahu's era. Are they perhaps underestimating this man's political survival skills?
Well, that is the question everybody's trying to figure out. I mean, many people have thought Netanyahu was the wrong leader, leading the country astray for so many years that the idea of getting him out started to seem like somewhere between an obsession and impossible. And so, yes, some people are celebrating, but first of all, there is still a procedural hurdle. In the past, it was simply a technicality, which is the swearing in by the Knesset, a vote that takes place some days after somebody announces that he has or she has been able to form a government. In this case, even that is becoming politicized. The person who has to advance that vote is the chairperson of the Knesset, the speaker of the Knesset, who is a Likud and Netanyahu loyalist. And he is expected to drag out that process longer than usual in the hopes that buying more time might allow Netanyahu to convince some of the lawmakers from the parties that have agreed to go into the coalition not to go into the coalition and to change their vote. They would need quite a number because it's not a matter only of having one fewer than 61 votes, which is a majority needed to, the majority for the coalition. They would have to reduce the number of votes in support of that party to fewer confidence votes than the no votes, because all you need is a simple majority to pass the government. So I think that it would be hard for Netanyahu to actually tear it down at this stage, but not impossible.
Analyst Dalia Schindlin, thanks so much.